Hello and welcome to another video about FreeDOS. I would like to show you how to install a FTP server to your FreeDOS machine. The purpose of this FTP server is that it will allow us to share files between our FreeDOS machine and other computers or virtual machines in our home network. And definitely I would suggest that you never use this FTP server outside of your home network. It doesn't come with any kind of encryption tools for the connection or any kind of things that would prevent a brute force attack. So it is not meant to be put out into the public, into the internet or any kind of other public network. So okay, when you had your DOS machine, your Microsoft DOS machine in the 80s, I'm pretty sure that there was no reason to use a FTP server, since A, you probably haven't had networking support in your DOS machine, and B, you probably haven't had a network. So in the 80s you were probably sharing files by using floppy disks from one computer to another. And since computers were very expensive, it is pretty likely that you didn't have more than one computer at the same time. So the only place where you had to share your files were when you were going to your neighbor's house and sharing your files with your neighbor. And since the internet wasn't implemented at that time, or wasn't being used by private persons and small business companies at that time, there was no other way to carry around data than to use floppy disks. So what we are doing today is something very new. If you are wondering what FreeDOS is, how to install or how to use it, or how to install networking support in FreeDOS, please feel free to take a look at my earlier videos that you will find in my channel. For this video I'm using the FreeDOS wiki again, and I will post this link also underneath the video in the video description. I think installing an FTP server is pretty easy, even though one or another person would probably say that it could be more of an advanced task. So for whatever it's worth, let's just start. Currently I'm in a virtual machine that runs a Linux Mint, just to show you the FreeDOS wiki and to connect to our FreeDOS machine later. And now I'm going to my VirtualBox manager, and what I want to use, or the machine that I want to use, is the FreeDOS Fresh machine. It's a fresh installation of FreeDOS. The thing that I want to do first is to make sure that our network adapter is a bridged adapter. That basically means that my FreeDOS machine acts as a regular machine in my network. It gets a dedicated IP address just for my FreeDOS machine, even though it's within my host machine and my host computer. So therefore I can access my FreeDOS machine from every other machine in my home network, which includes my host machine and also includes other VirtualBox guest machines that are also using a bridged adapter. Okay, all the other settings are more or less exactly the same settings that we have set in my download and install FreeDOS video. The only thing that we changed is the network setting. Okay, by the way, my Linux Mint machine also runs with a bridged adapter, so that we can use my Linux Mint machine later to access the FreeDOS machine. So now that we have set all the basics, let's start FreeDOS. Here we are in FreeDOS. The first thing we got to do in FreeDOS is to insert the FreeDOS disk image that I currently don't have in my computer. Okay, I have found the FreeDOS disk image ISO file so that we can continue the installation of the FTP server. Let's see what the FreeDOS wiki suggests us to do. And what they say is that we should install the mTCP package with the fdnpkg command. But I would rather like to use our normal package manager, since I also want to install basic networking support, so I'm using fdimples, and since the FreeDOS CD image is already inserted into our virtual machine, this command should show us all the available packages for our FreeDOS machine. So let's go to networking by using the arrow keys and choose FDNet. That's just basic networking support. We have already installed and used FDNet in one of my earlier videos about browsing the web with FreeDOS. And what we also need is the package that the wiki page recommends us to install, which is the mTCP package. That's a collection of tools and programs that are related to networking, and this package also includes the FTP server. So okay, the next step is to configure the FTP server, and what the FreeDOS wiki suggests us to do is that we use a sample configuration file and copy this configuration file to a new configuration file, and then customize this new configuration file in the way that we would like it to be. Okay, the only thing that came to my attention is that the sample configuration file is not located in a subdirectory of the FTOS directory in our C drive. It is rather installed into a newly created mTCP directory of our C drive. So we can't use this command that the FreeDOS wiki suggests us to use. We rather have to locate the sample.cfg file first. And as you can see from our installation log right here, all the files from the installation that the package manager automatically did for us are placed in the mTCP directory of our C drive. So let's go to the mTCP directory of our C drive, cd mtcp, list our directory. And what I see right here is that we have the sample CFG file right here, rather than in the FTOS directory. But from now on we can pretty much do what the FreeDOS wiki suggests us to do, and that is to use this sample.cfg file to copy it to our FTOS directory and name it mtcp.cfg. Okay, mtcp.cfg. That is done, and now we want to edit the mtcp.cfg file that we just have created out of a sample file. We are using the command edit. That's just a basic editor of FreeDOS, and it looks pretty much the same than it used to look in the old MS-DOS. Okay, something went wrong. I guess I used the wrong path. wait a minute. Let's go to cd to FTOS directory and see how our mtcp.cfg file looks. It has 2500 bytes, so I would expect that there would be some content within this file. Let's try again, and now we see our full mtcp.cfg file, so I probably just made a typo earlier. And what we see in this file is now the configuration for everything that comes with the mTCP package, and since the mTCP package includes lots of tools, we have lots of configuration available right here. Every line that begins with a hashtag is commented out, so it's not going to be used. And for now, pretty much the whole configuration file is commented out. Everything that's not commented out is something that we don't want to change. And the FreeDOS wiki suggests us some things that we should activate just by removing the hashtag before some line. You can activate the line and apply this line into the configuration. So the first line that we want to use is mtu, which is set to 1500 by a standard configuration. I'm gonna set it to 1472 as the FreeDOS wiki suggests us to do. And now next we would like to find the FTP server options, not the FTP client options. And I think they start right here. Okay. The FreeDOS wiki suggests us to use those settings. I'm gonna apply the FTP-Server password file and the FTP-Server log file by just removing the hashtags before each lines. And I'm fine with using the path cftp-pass. I don't think those files have to be in the FTOS subdirectory of our C drive, but it's up to you where you want to store both of those files. Just for the sake of this video, I'm gonna leave the standard setting and later create the ftp-pass.txt file right into our C drive. We're also gonna apply the option FTP-Serve file buffer size, TCP buffer size, and packets per pol. I think that's all that we got to do right here. So let's save this configuration file and go out of our editor. By the way, if you want to access the menu of the editor, you just have to use the Alt key of your keyboard and then the arrow keys to use the menu, and the Enter key to return whatever command you want to return into your computer. Okay. Now that we have edited the mTCP file, let's see what the FreeDOS wiki suggests us to do next. And that is to create the ftp-pass.txt file that we just have applied in our configuration in the mtcp.cfg file. Since I have chosen to place this file not in the FTOS directory but rather right into our C drive, I'm just gonna create it right here in our C drive by changing directory to our C drive and then saying edit ftp-pass.txt, and now edit automatically creates an empty file called ftp-pass.txt. And I'm just for the sake of this video, I'm doing exactly what the FreeDOS wiki wants me to do. I'm going to create a user which has the name user and the password. and I'm gonna give this user full privileges over our file system. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna save this file. Just for the sake of discussion, of course, this is not a secure way to set up your FTP server. It's just for testing and playing around purposes. I will talk about how to make your FTP server a little bit more secure later. So, okay, let's save the file and exit from the editor. Now the FreeDOS wiki wants us to restart the DHCP service, which also leads to the whole mTCP package reloading the mTCP configuration file. Okay, let's go to the mTCP directory, because that is the place where the DHCP is located. Okay, need to set the mTCP-CFG environment variable. Okay. That's new. That didn't happen in my earlier tests. So let's just tell him to use the mtcp.cfg file in our FTOS directory as the normal mtcp config file. Hope this works. Okay, and let's try starting DHCP again. Could not initialize TCP IP stack. Okay, something is going wrong. Let's reboot the machine and see if our machine then wants to start. And I guess the reason behind this error is that I haven't started my machine, or I restarted my machine after installing networking support. So okay, I probably have made a mistake. Let's see again if the DHCP now wants to start or restart, even though it already did when we were rebooting. And as you can see by our boot log, the DHCP started. It has read the mtcp.config file, and our computer or FreeDOS machine now has its own IP address, which is an IP address in my internal network, the 10.100.2.4. Let's see if the DHCP wants to restart now. cd to mtcp DHCP. Okay, now it starts, and all the things after the first error don't have to be done by you if you remember to restart your machine after installing networking support, which is something that I have forgotten, but I'm just human. Okay, let's try to start the FTP server. The FTP server is also placed under the mTCP directory in our C drive. Let's do a directory listing first in order to show you what's in there. Right here we have the FTP-Server.exe, so that is our FTP server. Let's start it by just typing FTP-Server.exe, and now it starts, but it complains about the FTP-Pass.txt file. There's something wrong on line 1. Okay, let's go back to our C drive, edit the FTP-Pass.txt, and see what we have done wrong. Some typo by me probably, and I already see where my typo is. I have put all into brackets, and I'm not supposed to do that. The last argument shouldn't be in brackets, so let's just remove the brackets and save the file. Exit again, and as you can see, one typo in a configuration file could mess up your whole program. Let's try again. Let's go to the mTCP directory again and try running the FTP-Serve.exe again. And now here we are. It is finally running. It displays us that it loaded the FTP-Pass.txt in our C drive. It also shows us the whole configuration. For example, packets per pole. That's something that we have just set to 2. So I guess that it now is fine with our configuration file. And again, it shows us the IP address of my FreeDOS machine, the 10.100.2.4, and that is what we need now in order to connect to our FreeDOS machine from our desktop computer. Let's go back to our Linux Mint machine. I have already opened FileZilla, and with basically just to make sure, of course FileZilla also runs on Windows or on Mac, and of course you can use whatever FTP client you want to use in order to get connected to your FreeDOS machine. You can also use another FreeDOS machine that comes also with a FTP client in order to get connected to your FreeDOS machine. But just for the sake of this video, I want to use a graphical environment, and therefore I'm using Linux Mint with FileZilla in order to connect to my FreeDOS machine. So now I'm typing in the IP address of my FreeDOS machine, and as username we used user, and as password we used the password, which of course is not very secure, but let's just try and see if we can get connected. Here we are. Okay. Just seeing by the logs, our connection is not encrypted. And from now on we have full access to our FreeDOS machine. We can go into our C drive. We can look for games that we have installed, which is Q Tetris, or see how our mTCP configuration looks. This is our FTP-Server file, and again we have full access over everything that happens in the FreeDOS machine. We also have access to our CD-ROM drive that the FreeDOS machine has. So let's go to the directory drive D, and this is our CD-ROM drive with the FreeDOS CD currently, but we could use it for any other kind of CD that we would like to use. So in this moment, what we can do with our FTP server now is very useful. If we, for example, want to put some kind of legacy software or legacy game on our FreeDOS machine, it can also be useful if we want to create a full copy or a full backup of our FreeDOS machine. And of course, using the username user and the password is not the securest way. And also, of course, we currently have full access over our machine, and deleting a file like the command.com could, or the kernel.sys or anything like that, any system file, could lead to our FreeDOS machine to not properly work anymore. So please still be careful even if you access your machine from another computer. Let's transfer a file from our FreeDOS machine to our local computer just in order to see if our connection works. I decided to use the qtetris.exe. As you can see, that went by pretty fast. Now we have the qtetris.exe from our FreeDOS machine on our local machine. So that is the whole function and the whole sense behind the FTP server. Now let's go back to our FreeDOS machine, into our FTP server, and as you know, FreeDOS, or DOS in general, is a single user system, so as long as our FTP server runs, we are not able to use our machine for doing something else. We can see in our, this is annoying, we can see in our log that another user with the IP address 10.100.2.5 has connected to our FTP server on our FreeDOS machine and has downloaded a file named cgamesqtetris.exe. So that's what we just did with our Linux Mint machine. Okay, let's end the server and talk about one last topic right here, or two last topics, and this is our FTP server log file and our FTP server password file. I have created both of them right into the C directory. So let's take a look into our log file first and see what our log file says. And this log file basically logs information about every user that connects to your FTP server and about every file that is being retrieved or uploaded from or to the FTP server. So with some time, this log file could literally explode because it gets bigger and bigger with the time. So the more you use your FTP server, the bigger the log file is. Okay, let's go out of our log file and take a look into the FTP pass file. Right here, what I have done is I have created a user named user with a password named password, and I gave him full privileges, which is something that I wouldn't suggest for you to do, but something that I just did for the sake of this video. Let's go out of this FTP password file and take a look into a sample password file. A sample password file is located under the mTCP directory, the mTCP installation directory underneath, which is in the C drive. So let's say edit ftp pass.txt, and this right here now is our sample configuration file, and it explains us how to create new users that won't have full privileges over our computer and maybe just read-only users. I think this file gives you a pretty good explanation of how to do that. But if you want to know more, or if you want to see some examples, just feel free to let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I would say that I just wrap up the video right here. We have seen how to create an FTP server in DOS and how to share our files between our FTP server or our FreeDOS machine and other machines in our network over the network, which is very comfortable compared to using floppy disks like it was in the early days. Okay, well, thanks for watching, God bless you, and goodbye.